Welcome back, my friends. This episode is about something we all want, but often misunderstand. Not luxury, not gold watches or five-star hotels, but something deeper, something that makes every hour of your life feel light, peaceful, and powerful. It's called leverage. Not leverage over others, but leverage over your own time, your own energy, and your own peace of mind. That's what we're going to talk about today, through stories, reflections, and a mindset that will change the way you look at wealth forever. This is for you. If you're tired of rushing, tired of noise, tired of saying yes to things that steal your joy, it's time to build a rich life, not based on luxury, but on the ability to breathe, live, and lead yourself well. Let's begin. Wake up without rushing. Time. Freedom is real. Wealth. There was a man who had everything on paper, money, a big house, and a title that made people respect him. But every morning, he woke up in a panic. Emails, meetings, calls, deadlines. He didn't even taste his coffee. He didn't notice the sunlight. He was alive, but not living. And then one day, he collapsed, exhausted, dizzy, heart pounding. The doctors didn't find anything deadly, but the truth was simple. He was dying slowly, from rushing. Now compare that to an old man who lived down the street. No fancy title, no luxury car, but every morning he walked to his garden, barefoot, humming a song. He drank tea under the sky, read a book, smiled at strangers, and moved through life with calm power. That's time freedom. That's real wealth. To wake up and choose how you start your day. To be present, not panicked. To build a life that doesn't just look rich, but feels rich. Ask yourself, do you control your morning? Or does your morning control you? You don't need to quit your job, but maybe. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Leave your phone in another room. Stretch, breathe, sit in silence. Let yourself be human before becoming a machine. That's where rich life begins. Not with money, but with margin. Let's keep going. Eat slowly, seated and undistracted. Peace is a luxury. Most never afford. Let me tell you about Maya. Maya was a young professional, always on the go. She worked hard. She earned well. But lunch, that was a sandwich in one hand, phone in the other, and eyes on her inbox. Sometimes she didn't even remember what she ate. It was just fuel, not a moment, not a memory. One afternoon, she visited her grandmother's house. The old woman had cooked a warm meal, nothing fancy, just rice, vegetables, and soup. But when they sat down, something strange happened. There were no phones, no TV, no rush, just silence, and the smell of home. They talked, they laughed, they took their time, and for the first time in years, Maya felt something she didn't know she was missing: peace. You see, eating slowly and undistracted isn't just about health. It's about presence. It's about respecting the moment and letting your nervous system know you're safe now. But most people today, they eat in cars, they scroll between bites, they swallow stress with their food. That's not peace. That's survival. A rich life means taking your time, not just with big things but with small ones too, because the way you eat tells your brain how you live, slowly, gratefully, presently. Even if it's just 10 quiet minutes, even if it's alone, even if it's bread and butter, Make your meals sacred again. Because a full stomach means nothing if your mind is still starving for rest. Decline things without guilt. A rich life doesn't say yes to crumbs. Have you ever said yes? When every part of you wanted to say no, just to keep the peace, just to avoid guilt, just because you didn't want to disappoint anyone. We all have. But here's the truth that no one tells you. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to something that builds you. There was a young woman named Alina. She was kind, too kind, maybe. She said yes to every request. Extra shifts, family favors, random meetings, and by the end of the week, she was exhausted, bitter, and secretly angry. One day, she broke down crying in the parking lot of a grocery store. Not because of anything big, but because she realized something heartbreaking. She gave away all her energy to people who would never do the same for her. That's when she decided. No more guilt, no more crumbs, no more saying yes just to keep others comfortable while she stayed uncomfortable. A rich life knows its value, and part of that value comes from boundaries. When you decline with grace, you protect your peace, you protect your purpose, and you protect your energy for the people and things that actually matter. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't need a dramatic excuse. A simple, "I can't right now," is enough. A simple, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I'm focusing on something else," is enough. Because here's the secret. The people who truly care about you, they'll understand. And the ones who don't, they were never meant to have that much access to you in the first place. Rich isn't about how much you can do. It's about how honestly you can live. So say no, without guilt, because your yes should mean something. And when it does, you'll finally have space for the life you were meant to say yes to. Surround yourself with quiet strength. Drama is a tax on your nervous system. There's something heavy about being around loud people. Not loud in volume, but loud in energy. People who live in chaos. People who thrive on conflict. People who turn every little issue into a storm. You don't notice it right away, but stay around them long enough, and your body starts to feel tired. Your mood becomes unstable. Your thoughts feel scattered, because drama is expensive. Not in money, but in peace. There was a man named Luis. He had a group of friends who were always in some kind of war. One week, it was gossip. Next week, betrayal. Then secrets. Then blame. It was never calm. Luis laughed with them. He shared drinks. He played along. But at night, he felt drained. He began having headaches, waking up anxious, and questioning if something was wrong with him. Until one day, he met someone new, someone calm, someone who listened more than they spoke, someone who didn't force opinions or play games. And Luis said something that surprised even himself. Being around you feels like taking a deep breath. That's quiet strength. That's the kind of energy that heals you, not hurts you. A rich life isn't full of noise. It's full of calm. You don't need 100 people around you. You don't need constant validation or high-volume attention. You need people who are soft but solid, who don't argue to win, who don't gossip to connect, who don't force their chaos into your clarity. So ask yourself this. After you leave a conversation, do you feel lighter or heavier? Choose wisely, because what surrounds you slowly becomes you. Peace is your nervous system's best friend. Protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Spend more on what multiplies: tools, skills, energy. There's a kind of spending that makes you poorer, and there's a kind of spending that quietly makes you richer. Not richer in money, but in power, clarity, energy, and time. Let me tell you about Kai. He used to chase every discount, buy the cheapest phone, the cheapest clothes, skip every course, avoid every investment, and at first it felt smart, safe, frugal. But slowly, life became harder. His phone was always lagging. His clothes wore out fast. His skills stayed the same while others grew. And eventually, he realized saving money cost him his growth. Then one day, he shifted his mindset. Instead of asking, "What's the cheapest?" he started asking, "What will multiply my time? What will multiply my knowledge? What will multiply my energy?" He didn't buy more. He bought better. He didn't spend recklessly. He spent intentionally. A faster laptop meant faster work. A morning coach meant deeper discipline. A better chair meant fewer back pains and more focus. Kai began to realize tools are not luxuries. They're leverage. Skills are not expenses. They're engines. We live in a world where people will spend hundreds on a night out, but hesitate to buy a book, or a course, or a tool that could save them hundreds of hours in the next 5 years. But here's the truth. Every time you invest in something that makes you better, you're buying back your future. So, look around. What are you using every day? That slows you down. What small investment would double your results? What knowledge could change your path, if only you took it seriously? A rich life multiplies. It multiplies time. It multiplies strength. It multiplies peace. So don't be afraid to spend. Just spend where it builds you, not just where it distracts you. Because the richest people are often the ones who spend wisely, not cheaply. Own your hours. Wealth is also how you recover. You've heard the phrase, "Time is money," but the truth is, time is more powerful than money, because time is your energy, your clarity, your breath, your life. There was a man named Eli, smart, driven, focused. He worked 12 hours a day, built a strong business, made good money. But his eyes were tired. His back hurt. He hadn't seen his parents in months. He forgot the last time he took a slow walk, or a full breath. One night, he looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the face looking back. It wasn't just older, it was heavy, empty. That's when Eli realized he had mastered how to earn, but never learned how to recover. He started small, turning his phone off by 9, blocking 30 minutes to walk each morning, saying no to meetings on Sundays, cooking his own dinner, reading for pleasure, not just performance. And slowly, his energy came back. His mind cleared. His face softened. Because recovery is power. The world praises hustle, but what truly sustains you is rhythm. If every hour you own is filled with doing, you'll never have time to become. Owning your hours doesn't mean doing nothing. It means choosing intentionally, not just working hard, but resting deep. Not just moving fast, but pausing wisely. A rich life feels balanced, not because it's perfect, but because you refuse to let your value be measured only in output. So here's a question. What part of your day belongs to you? Not your job, not your phone, not your responsibilities. You. If you can't answer that, it's time to reclaim it. Even 15 minutes is a start, because your hours shape your life, and the life you love begins when you start loving how you live each hour. Go where you're respected, not just tolerated. True wealth feels light. There's a quiet pain that many people carry. It doesn't scream. It doesn't bleed, but it slowly eats away at their confidence. It's the feeling of being tolerated, not loved, not appreciated, just tolerated. They show up, but no one really sees them. They speak, but no one really listens. They give, but it's never really valued. Let me tell you about Nina. Nina worked in a company where she was smart, kind, helpful. She always stayed late. She always said yes. She always tried to keep the peace. But her ideas were ignored. Her boundaries were crossed. And the praise she received was crumbs. At first, she told herself, "It's just work. Be strong." But one day, she watched someone else, less experienced, louder, more aggressive, get promoted over her. Not because they were better, but because they demanded space, while she kept making herself small. That night she cried, not from weakness, but from years of pretending it didn't hurt. And the next morning, she made a choice. She didn't beg. She didn't argue. She simply walked away. She found a place where her voice mattered, where her presence was welcomed, where she didn't feel the need to shrink, and for the first time in years, she felt light. Because that's what respect does. It doesn't just lift your career, it lifts your soul. A rich life means being seen, being celebrated for who you are, not having to wear masks to feel safe. You don't need to stay in places that barely want you. You don't need to prove your worth to people who are blind to it. You don't need to keep showing up for tables that don't have a seat. For you, there are rooms where your peace will grow, people who will say your name with warmth. Jobs, friends, relationships, where your light doesn't scare them. It inspires them. So go where you're respected, not just tolerated, because true wealth isn't heavy. It's not exhausting. It's not full of silent resentment. True wealth feels light. It feels free, and you deserve to feel that way. Not someday, but now. There's something sacred about a slow morning. It doesn't look like much from the outside. A quiet breath, a cup of tea, a few pages of a book. But inside, it feels like the world finally makes sense. And that kind of morning isn't a luxury. It's a choice. It's a kind of inner wealth. Years ago, I met a man named Juna. He was a high-level manager in a busy city, the kind where the traffic starts before sunrise and never really stops. Juna made good money. He had the car, the house, the status, but every morning, it was chaos. Wake up, check emails, skip breakfast, rush through traffic, slam coffee like a pill, sit in back-to-back meetings with no soul, no silence, no space to breathe. On paper, he had it all, but inside, he was empty, and his body knew it. He started waking up with headaches. His heart would race for no reason. He couldn't remember the last time he heard birds in the morning, even though they were always there. One day, Juna missed a big meeting. He overslept, not from laziness but from pure exhaustion. And in the silence of that mist morning, something cracked open. He didn't rush to apologize. He didn't grab his phone. He just sat there, still, silent, half guilty, half relieved. It was the first time in 12 years that he'd sat through a full sunrise, and in that quiet moment he asked himself, "What am I rushing for? To make more money he barely enjoys? To prove something to people he doesn't even like? To hit deadlines that never end?" That day changed him. He didn't quit his job. He didn't move to a mountain. He just decided to own his mornings. He started waking up 30 minutes earlier, made tea, lit a candle, read 2 pages of a book he loved, and just sat. In peace, in presence. No screen, no noise, no rush. And the craziest part? His whole day changed. Meetings became smoother. He snapped less at his team. He smiled more. He listened better. Because when you begin your day with peace, you don't need the world to give it to you. And that's real wealth. You may not have an extra hour. You may have kids, work, stress, duties, but even 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes of ownership in the morning. It changes your nervous system. It whispers to your body, "You're safe now." So many people wake up in fight or flight. Their first thought is worry. Their first action is reaction. Their first breath is tight, but not you. Not anymore. Take back your morning. Put your phone in another room. Breathe slowly before your feet touch the floor. Stretch while the world is still quiet. Listen to yourself before listening to everyone else. Because a rich life doesn't start with money. It starts with margin. Margin to breathe, to think, to choose. Your first hour sets the tone for your whole day. So guard it like a treasure, because that's what it is. The morning is not a race, it's a ritual. We live in a world where meals have become multitasking. Food is swallowed, not tasted. Moments are skipped, and peace is forgotten. But there's something deeply rich about sitting down to eat and doing nothing else. No phone, no screen, no rushing, just you, your plate, and the present moment. Let me tell you about Lena. She worked in a fast-paced office, always busy, always tired. Most days she ate at her desk. One hand on the keyboard, one hand holding her fork. She barely remembered what she ate. One day, she looked at her plate and realized it was empty, but she couldn't remember finishing it. No taste, no satisfaction, no presence. It scared her, not because she forgot a meal, but because she realized how unconscious she had become. That night she went home and decided to change just one thing: her dinner. She turned off her phone, set the table, lit a small candle, and ate slowly. Alone, quiet, intentional. Each bite had weight, each flavor had meaning, and for the first time in years, she felt full, not just in her stomach, but in her soul. It became a ritual, her way of returning to herself. And something surprising happened. Her digestion improved. Her sleep got deeper. Her stress softened. She even cried one night, not from sadness but from relief, because she didn't realize how long she had gone without giving herself permission to pause. Here's the truth. Fast food isn't just about what's in the wrapper. It's about the speed of your life. Most people eat while scrolling, while working, while driving, while worrying, and their bodies never get the signal to relax. But when you eat slowly, when you sit down, when you breathe between bites, you tell your body, I am not in danger. And that changes everything. Even if it's just 10 minutes, even if it's rice and eggs, even if you're alone. Make your meals sacred. Not because the food is fancy, but because you are. Your peace is worth a full meal. No noise, no guilt, just presence. That's the kind of richness that money can't buy. So tomorrow, when it's time to eat, don't rush it. Put the screen away. Sit with yourself. Taste the moment. Honor the pause. Because a rich life isn't just what you achieve. It's how gently you live through each day. And sometimes, it begins with something as simple as chewing slowly. There's a quiet trap many kind people fall into. It's not obvious. It doesn't shout. But it steals from them. One small yes at a time. It's the habit of agreeing to things that don't feel right, just to avoid the guilt, to keep the peace, to not disappoint, to be the good one. And every time you do it, you hand over a little piece of your freedom. There's a woman named Dana. Sweet, dependable, always smiling. Her phone never stopped ringing. Can you help me move this weekend? Can you cover my shift? Can you talk tonight? I need to vent. Dana always said yes. Because saying no made her feel selfish. She didn't want to upset anyone. She didn't want to seem cold. She didn't want to lose love. But deep down, she was exhausted. One night she sat on the edge of her bed, half-dressed for a dinner she didn't want to go to, about to get in a car to meet people she didn't feel connected to, and she said something soft but powerful to herself. I don't want to go, not because of laziness, not because of drama, but because her heart was tired of pretending. So she stayed home. She canceled politely. She made soup. She read a chapter of a book she had been too busy to open. She put her phone on silent and listened to her own breathing. And that night, she didn't feel guilt. She felt alive. That was the beginning. She started saying no, with kindness, not apology. No, I can't today. No, I need time for myself. No, thank you. I'm focusing on rest. And you know what happened? People didn't hate her. They respected her. The ones who mattered stayed. The ones who used her faded. And her life? It got lighter. Because a rich life doesn't run on guilt. It runs on alignment. You're not here to please everyone. You're here to live honestly. Your time is not free. Your energy is not cheap. Your peace is not disposable. And anyone who makes you feel bad for protecting it is someone who benefits from your exhaustion. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to earn your rest. You don't need to feel bad for taking care of your heart. Boundaries are not rejection. They are respect. For yourself, and for the life you are building. So the next time your soul whispers, I don't want to do this, listen, not with panic, but with love. Because every no that protects your peace is a yes to the life you actually want. And that, my friend, is wealth. There's a weight you don't always notice right away. It's not on your shoulders. It's in your mind, in your heart, in the way your chest feels tighter around certain people. That weight is the cost of drama. It doesn't explode all at once. It seeps in slowly. One sarcastic comment, one passive-aggressive remark, one unnecessary argument, one emotional roller coaster after another. Let me tell you about Arjun. He was known as the fixer in his group, the peacemaker, the one who always listened, always helped, always stayed calm. But the people around him, they loved chaos. Every day was a new complaint. Every weekend was filled with fights, gossip, jealousy, and breakdowns. And Arjun, he thought he was strong for staying through it all, but one day he got physically sick. Not from a virus, not from bad food, but from emotional overload, headaches, shallow breathing, fatigue that didn't go away with sleep. His doctor asked him a simple question: "Is your life peaceful?" He wanted to say yes, but instead, he started to cry. Because the answer was no, and it had been no for years. That was the moment he finally admitted it. Strength doesn't mean holding chaos. Strength means choosing calm. So Arjun made a hard but healthy decision. He stopped chasing broken conversations. He stopped apologizing for choosing silence. He stopped showing up for people who only brought noise, and he started seeking out quiet strength. Not silence from weakness, but silence from inner stability. People who don't need to yell to be heard. People who don't need to win every conversation. People who don't drain you just to feel better themselves. The change wasn't instant, but slowly. His energy returned. His sleep deepened. His thoughts became clearer. And most importantly, he could finally hear his own voice again. Because, here's the truth, every conversation is an exchange of energy. And if every exchange leaves you drained, it's not communication, it's emotional theft. You don't need to cut everyone off, you don't need to be rude, but you do need to protect your peace. Start paying attention. After you spend time with someone, do you feel lighter or heavier? That's your compass. Real friends don't make you nervous. Real relationships don't feel like battles. Real love doesn't come with a side of anxiety. Surround yourself with people who are soft, but steady, kind, but clear, present, without pretending. That's quiet strength, and when you find it, your whole body will breathe differently. Drama is a tax, and peace is freedom. And you, my friend, deserve to feel free. There's a weight you don't always notice right away. It's not on your shoulders. It's in your mind, in your heart, in the way your chest feels tighter around certain people. That weight is the cost of drama. It doesn't explode all at once. It seeps in, slowly. One sarcastic comment, one passive-aggressive remark, one unnecessary argument, one emotional roller coaster after another. Let me tell you about Arjun. He was known as the fixer in his group, the peacemaker, the one who always listened, always helped, always stayed calm. But the people around him, they loved chaos. Every day was a new complaint. Every weekend was filled with fights, gossip, jealousy, and breakdowns. And Arjun? He thought he was strong for staying through it all. But one day, he got physically sick. Not from a virus. Not from bad food, but from emotional overload, headaches, shallow breathing, fatigue that didn't go away with sleep. His doctor asked him a simple question: "Is your life peaceful?" He wanted to say yes, but instead, he started to cry. Because the answer was no, and it had been no for years. That was the moment he finally admitted it. Strength doesn't mean holding chaos. Strength means choosing calm. So Arjun made a hard but healthy decision. He stopped chasing broken conversations. He stopped apologizing for choosing silence. He stopped showing up for people who only brought noise, and he started seeking out quiet strength. Not silence from weakness, but silence from inner stability. People who don't need to yell to be heard. People who don't need to win every conversation. People who don't drain you just to feel better themselves. The change wasn't instant, but slowly. His energy returned. His sleep deepened. His thoughts became clearer. And, most importantly, he could finally hear his own voice again. Because, here's the truth, every conversation is an exchange of energy. And if every exchange leaves you drained, it's not communication, it's emotional theft. You don't need to cut everyone off. You don't need to be rude, but you do need to protect your peace. Start paying attention. After you spend time with someone, do you feel lighter or heavier? That's your compass. Real friends don't make you nervous. Real relationships don't feel like battles. Real love doesn't come with a side of anxiety. Surround yourself with people who are soft, but steady, kind, but clear, present, without pretending. That's quiet strength. And when you find it, your whole body will breathe differently. Drama is a tax, and peace is freedom. And you, my friend, deserve to feel free. Most people spend to feel better. They buy to escape. They collect to impress. And yet, they still feel stuck. Why? Because what you spend on becomes your future. And if it doesn't multiply you, it's quietly draining you. Let me tell you a story about Sam. Sam had a job, a family, and a long list of dreams. He wanted to learn photography. He wanted to write. He wanted to start his own small business. But every time he thought about it, he'd say, maybe next year. Maybe when I save more. Maybe after I buy a new TV, a new jacket, another weekend getaway. And the years kept passing. One day, Sam came across a photography course online. Not cheap, but powerful. He hesitated. He thought of all the other things he could do with the money. Then he thought of all the years he had wasted waiting, and he made the decision. He enrolled. The first week was tough. He doubted himself. He missed some assignments. But he kept going, and slowly his skills grew. His confidence grew. People started noticing his work. Someone asked him to do a photo shoot, then 2, then 5. Within 2 years, what started as a risk became a side income, then a passion, then freedom. Because he spent on something that multiplied. Here's what no one tells you. The right investment doesn't just return money. It returns identity. It returns confidence. It returns time, health, skill, strength, peace. But most people avoid these investments, and then wonder why nothing is changing. They'll spend $200 on a dinner, but not $20 on a book. They'll buy the latest phone, but ignore a broken mindset. They'll upgrade their closet, but not their calendar. That's not frugal. That's fragile. A rich life isn't about avoiding spending. It's about spending on what moves you forward. Tools that save you time. Skills that open new doors. Coaches, books, courses, experiences that build your mind. Even simple things. A better chair if you work long hours. A blender that helps you eat healthier. A pair of shoes that protect your feet while you walk toward your goals. These are not luxuries. They're leverage. So ask yourself this. What's one thing I use every day that could be upgraded? What's one thing I keep saying I want to learn, but never invest in? That's your path. Because when you spend on what multiplies, you don't just grow faster. You live smarter, and slowly you become someone who is not just surviving, but thriving. Not because of what you have, but because of what you've built. Own your hours. Wealth is also how you recover. Everyone talks about how to work harder, how to grind, how to hustle, how to stay busy, stay booked, stay productive. But no one teaches you how to rest, how to recover, how to slow down without guilt, how to own your hours. Not just the ones you give away, but the ones you keep for yourself. Let me tell you about Mira. She was the kind of person who always had something to do. To-do lists, tasks, back-to-back plans. She worked long hours, then cleaned the house, then helped her family, then replied to messages. She was always doing, but somewhere in all the doing, she forgot how to just be. One afternoon, her body gave her a message she couldn't ignore. Dizziness, fatigue, a sudden wave of panic. She thought she was having a heart attack. The hospital ran tests. Nothing serious. They told her what she least expected to hear. You're exhausted. You need rest. Not the kind of rest that comes from sleep, but the kind that comes from slowing your soul. Mira didn't know how, so she started small. She blocked 1 hour on Sundays, just for her. No calls, no chores, no obligations. She used it to nap, to walk, to watch the sky. And something inside her began to change. She didn't become lazy. She became stronger. Because real recovery doesn't weaken you, it recharges you. You see, you don't just burn out from working too hard. You burn out from never pausing, from always being available, from always rushing, from always filling every single hour with activity. But here's the truth. You are not a machine. You are not a schedule. You are a soul, and your soul needs breathing, room. A rich life is not about always being productive. It's about being present. It's about having moments that aren't measured in output, but in peace. So ask yourself, which hours of your day belong to you? Not your job, not your phone, not your family, just you. If your answer is none, then your life isn't really yours. Even if it's just 15 minutes a day, protect that space. Guard it. Block it in your calendar if you have to. Treat it like a sacred appointment, because it is. That's the hour when your body gets to recover. That's the hour when your creativity comes back. That's the hour when your joy starts to breathe again. You don't need a vacation to feel rich. You need ownership of your own time. Own your mornings. Own your breaks. Own your silence. Own your peace. Because wealth isn't just about how you earn. It's also about how you heal. Where you're respected, not just tolerated. True wealth feels light. Where you're respected, not just tolerated. True wealth feels light. There's a silent kind of pain that comes from staying in places where you don't belong. It's not loud, it doesn't shout, but it builds, little by little, until one day you wake up and feel like a stranger in your own life. That's what happens when you're tolerated, but not respected. Let me share the story of Nico. He was smart, thoughtful, loyal to a fault. But at work? He was overlooked. His ideas were brushed aside. His efforts were rarely acknowledged. He wasn't disliked, but he wasn't seen either. He wasn't celebrated, just used. Even outside of work, in his circle of friends, he often played the role of the helper, the one who always showed up, the one who gave more than he received, and deep down, it began to hurt. But Nico told himself what many people do. This is just how it is. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I should just be grateful. Until one day, he met someone new, a mentor, just one person, who looked him in the eye and said, "You have something rare, and people should treat you like you matter." That, one sentence, cracked something open. He realized, respect isn't just something you earn, it's something you're allowed to expect. He didn't quit his job that day. He didn't disappear from his friends. But slowly, he started to shift. He spoke up more. He stopped apologizing for taking up space. He distanced himself from people who only called when they needed something. And the result? The weight he didn't know he was carrying started to lift. Because here's what no one tells you. Being liked is not enough. Being included is not enough. Being tolerated is not enough. A rich life is built in places where you feel safe, valued, heard, and honored. It's not about being praised every day. It's about feeling seen without having to shrink, feeling respected without having to explain, feeling free to be fully you, without fear of rejection. So here's a quiet truth to carry with you. You don't need to stay where you feel invisible. You don't need to explain your worth. You don't need to lower your volume just to be accepted. There are rooms that are waiting for your voice, people who will see your presence as a gift, opportunities that don't ask you to change who you are, but ask you to bring more of who you are. So leave the spaces that feel heavy. Walk toward the ones that feel light. Because real wealth, it's not just found in the bank, it's found in the relationships that breathe life into your soul. Go where you are respected, not just allowed, not just needed, but truly, deeply valued. That's how a rich life feels. Light. There was once a nurse named Anna. She worked night shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Tired, overwhelmed, often underappreciated. She'd come home when the sky was just starting to lighten and collapse into bed with makeup still on and shoes barely off. She thought this was normal. One day, she had 2 hours before her next shift. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and instead of turning on the TV, she looked out the window. She noticed something. A boy walking to school with his grandfather. They stopped by the same tree every day, picked a leaf, and whispered something. She'd never noticed them before, even though they passed the same spot every morning. Why? Because she was always rushing. Even when she wasn't moving, her mind was racing. In that moment, she felt something strange. Jealousy of their slowness, of their peace. So Anna made a new rule. After every shift, she would sit for 10 minutes before going to bed. No distractions. Just breath, stillness, a warm drink, a soft light. She didn't know it then, but those 10 minutes became her anchor. Even on the toughest days, she had those minutes. Even when everything else went wrong, she had that pause. The world tells us to rush, to keep going, to be faster, louder, more productive. But life isn't meant to be a race. It's a rhythm, and that rhythm starts the moment you wake up. Another story. Ben and the 3-minute morning rule. Ben was a father of 2. Busy mornings, school drop-offs, work deadlines. He never thought he had time for peace until his therapist asked him a simple question. What would happen if you gave yourself just 3 minutes? Ben laughed. What could I possibly do? With 3 minutes? But he tried. 3 minutes? Before touching his phone. Before waking the kids. Before coffee. He sat in the hallway, closed his eyes, placed his hand on his heart, and said to himself, I am here. This is my day. I get to choose how I walk into it. The result? He didn't become perfect, but he became present. And that presence changed how he spoke to his kids, how he handled stress, how he managed pressure. Because those 3 minutes weren't about time. They were about intention at slowly, seated, and undistracted. There was a boy named Eli. He grew up in a home where meals were never eaten together. Breakfast was rushed. Lunch was skipped. Dinner was eaten in front of the TV in silence. By the time Eli was 25, food was no longer nourishment. It was just a task, something to get through. He'd eat standing up in the kitchen, scrolling his phone, replying to emails, biting fast, swallowing faster. Until one day, his stomach began to hurt. Every meal left him feeling bloated, uncomfortable, and somehow still hungry. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong, so they sent him to a nutritionist, and she said something he'd never heard before. Don't change the food yet. Change the way you eat. At first, he didn't understand, but she gave him one task. For 1 week, eat every meal sitting down. No distractions, no screens, no phone. Just food, just breath, just presence. It sounded too simple to work, but he did it. The first day, he felt awkward. The second day, he got bored. The third day, he started to notice the texture of his food. The fourth day, he realized how much less he needed to feel full, and by the 7th day, his stomach stopped hurting. His mind felt calmer, and for the first time in years, he felt connected to himself while eating. Because eating slowly isn't just about digestion. It's about dignity. It's about telling your body, I see you, I honor you, you matter. Let's take another story. Maria and the dinner table. Memory. Maria lived with her grandmother in a small house. Her grandmother didn't speak much English. She didn't have many luxuries. But every evening at 6 p.m. she would set the table. 2 plates, 2 cups, a small candle, always the same seat. No phone, no TV. Just the sound of soup bubbling on the stove. Maria used to roll her eyes at it. What's the big deal, Grandma? Just eat. But years later, after her grandmother passed, Maria found herself in a new city, living alone, eating on the couch, scrolling Instagram. And suddenly, the memory hit her. That quiet table. That warm soup. That look in her grandmother's eyes. Like dinner was a gift, not just a habit. So that night Maria did something she hadn't done in years. She cleared the small table in her apartment, lit a candle, served herself a plate of rice and vegetables, and sat. And in that silence, she felt her grandmother beside her. That's the power of a slow meal. It brings us back to the present, back to our culture, back to our ancestors, back to ourselves. Now, take a look at your own habits. When was the last time you tasted every bite? When was the last time a meal felt like love, not a task? You don't need fancy food to eat with grace. You just need to pause. Even if you're eating alone, set a plate. Even if you're tired, light a candle. Even if it's a simple bowl of noodles, eat it with respect. Because when you eat slowly, you remind your soul that you're worth showing up for, not just in work, not just in public, but in private. And that is the beginning of a rich life. Decline things without guilt. There was a teacher named Janelle. Everyone loved her. She stayed late to help students. She volunteered to decorate the classroom. She covered for absent co-workers. She even brought snacks for school meetings. Every time. But here's what no one saw. She was tired. She had a family of her own. She had her own dreams, to write a book, to travel, to rest. But there was never time. Because every time someone asked, "Can you help?" she smiled and said yes. Even when her body said no. Even when her heart said no. Even when her family needed her more than her co-workers did. One evening, her young daughter pulled on her sleeve and asked, "Mom, how come everyone else gets your yes, but we get your tired?" That sentence broke her, because she realized something painful. She was giving the best of herself to people who didn't even notice, and leaving leftovers for the people she loved the most. That night, she made a list of the things she kept saying yes to, and none of them aligned with her own peace. So she began to shift, not dramatically, not with a speech, but with quiet choices. She stopped apologizing for saying no. She stopped over-explaining. She stopped feeling like she had to earn rest. At first, she felt guilty, but then she felt something new. She felt light because she wasn't betraying anyone. She was simply honoring herself. Let me tell you another story. David and the birthday party he didn't want to go. David was invited to a big birthday party. A fancy one. Big crowd. Expensive dinner. Loud music. Everyone in his office was going, and even though every part of him wanted to stay home, he said yes, because he didn't want to look antisocial, because he didn't want people to talk, because he didn't want to be judged. But the night of the party, he sat in his car for 20 minutes in the parking lot, heart pounding, palms sweating. Not because he was shy, but because he was drained. He finally texted the host, "I'm sorry, I can't come tonight. I need to rest." He thought he'd lose respect. But something strange happened. The host replied, "Honestly, I wish I could skip it too." That was the moment David realized everyone's pretending they want to go, pretending they're fine, pretending they're okay saying yes when their whole body says no. But real strength is not in pretending. It's in being honest. So ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you stopped saying yes to crumbs? If you stopped giving your time to things that don't align with your values? If you stopped feeling like you owe people your energy just because they asked? The truth is, saying no is not rejection. It's redirection. It's guiding your energy toward what actually matters, toward peace, toward alignment, toward the life you're trying to build, not the one others are trying to borrow from. And you don't have to be harsh. You can say no with love. You can say no with kindness. You can say no with dignity. Because your no is not selfish. It's sacred, and every time you say it, you open a little more space for the life you actually want. Surround yourself with quiet strength. People enter a room and bring peace with them. Others enter a room, and you feel your body brace itself. It's not about what they say, it's about the energy they carry. There's a man named Theo. Theo used to think life was meant to be intense. He had friends who thrived on chaos, arguing over small things, turning jokes into insults, gossiping in group chats. At first, it felt exciting, lively, like connection. But over time, something changed. Theo noticed that after hanging out with them, he always felt tired. Not physically, but emotionally. His thoughts would race. His heart would feel heavy. His mind would replay conversations over and over. And one night, as he lay in bed, unable to sleep after another drama-filled dinner, he asked himself quietly, "Why do I keep calling this friendship when it feels like war?" That's when he began to understand. Some people confuse loudness with love, but real love doesn't drain you. Let's talk about Maya. Maya was a calm person by nature. She didn't like confrontation. She valued peace. But her closest friend? She was fire. If Maya didn't reply fast enough, she got passive-aggressive. If Maya disagreed, she became defensive. If Maya shared good news, the friend turned it into competition. And still, Maya stayed. Why? Because, she told herself, this is just how she is. She's been there for me. It's not always bad. But deep down, Maya knew. This wasn't friendship. It was emotional management. She wasn't growing. She was walking on eggshells. And the hardest part? She felt guilty even thinking of letting go, until she met someone new, a coworker who invited her for coffee one day. They sat, they talked, no judgment, no interruption, just a quiet, curious presence. Maya left that coffee shop and burst into tears in her car, not because anything bad had happened, but because it was the first time in years she felt emotionally safe. That's the moment she realized what peace feels like. And once you feel it, you stop settling for anything less. Here's what we forget. Drama doesn't always come as big explosions. Sometimes it's subtle, backhanded compliments, unspoken resentment, being the listener, always, but never being heard, and your body keeps score. That anxiety before the call, that deep sigh after the meeting, that tight feeling in your chest when you see their name pop up on your screen. That's your nervous system saying, this isn't peace. So what do? You start choosing differently. You choose people who don't need a spotlight. You choose conversations that don't leave you confused. You choose silence over survival mode interaction, and most importantly, you allow yourself to let go without hating them. Some people aren't evil. They're just not healthy for you anymore. And that's okay. Letting go doesn't mean you're cruel. It means you're clearing space for the people who bring quiet strength. The kind of friend who listens without fixing. The kind of partner who doesn't punish you for needing space. The kind of energy that feels soft, grounded, and deeply safe. That's wealth, because your nervous system deserves peace. Not someday. Now, spend more on what multiplies. There was a man named Victor. Victor always prided himself on saving money. He used a cracked phone, typed emails on an old, lagging laptop, wore worn-out shoes that hurt his back. He thought this was discipline, but every day felt like a struggle. One morning, his laptop froze during a client meeting. He lost the deal, not because of his ideas, but because of a tool that couldn't keep up. And in that moment, it hit him. Saving money was costing him opportunity. That week, he made a bold move. He didn't buy luxury. He bought leverage, a better laptop, a comfortable chair, a noise-canceling headset, a course on copywriting, not because he wanted to spend, but because he wanted to scale. And within months, his work became faster. His focus became sharper. His confidence grew. Because he wasn't just working harder, he was working smarter. Let me tell you about someone else. Sophie. Sophie loved cooking. It was her therapy, her joy. But her kitchen was cramped. Her knives were dull. Her blender was older than her. One day she watched a YouTube chef say, "Don't let broken tools kill your passion." That hit her hard. She'd always seen spending on herself as selfish, but now she realized the right tool could renew her love for what she already enjoyed. She saved up, bought one good knife, then a solid cutting board, then a quality pan. Each purchase made her kitchen feel more alive, more hers. She began sharing recipes online. People noticed. She got a small brand deal. Then a weekend job teaching cooking classes. All from tools. Here's the truth nobody teaches you in school. If it saves you time, energy, or stress, it's not a cost. It's an investment. If it teaches you a new skill, opens a door, or relieves daily frustration, it's not luxury. It's wisdom. Most people will spend $500 on a phone to scroll, but hesitate to spend $50 on a course that could change their income forever. They'll spend on things that entertain them, but not on things that elevate them. But a rich life knows the difference. You don't need to spend more. You need to spend with intention. Ask yourself, what am I using every day that's slowing me down? What have I been meaning to learn, but keep putting off? What tool or knowledge would multiply my time or energy? That's where to start. Start small. Buy the book. Sign up for the class. Upgrade one thing in your daily life. Because every small investment in the right place pays you back in clarity, growth, and peace. You don't need more stuff. You need the right stuff. Stuff that supports your energy, your goals, your evolution. Spend like a builder. Spend like someone who sees 10 years ahead. Spend on what multiplies you. That's what wealth does. Own your hours. There was a woman named Kira. From the outside, she looked like she had everything together. Busy job, smart outfits, a packed calendar, always responding to emails within 5 minutes. But late at night, she'd sit in her kitchen, staring into her tea. Exhausted, numb, not sad exactly, but not really present either. She kept telling herself, "I'll rest on the weekend." But every weekend became another to-do list. Groceries, family errands, laundry, bills, clean, catch up, repeat. Until one Sunday, her body made the decision for her. She collapsed while folding clothes. No warning, no drama, just silence. Her doctor said, "Nothing serious, but your body is done. You're living with no fuel." That's when Kira realized something no one had taught her. It wasn't just about working hard. It was about never having time to recover. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion. If you're tired, you must be successful. If you're busy, you must be important. If you're burned out, you must be strong. But strength isn't found in depletion. It's found in restoration. Let me introduce you to someone else, Jared. Jared was a creative director, always producing, always thinking, always pushing. But his ideas began to dry up, not because he wasn't talented, but because he was never still. He worked through lunch, took calls on walks, felt guilty watching movies without multitasking. Until one morning, an old friend gave him a challenge. Do nothing for 15 minutes a day. He laughed. That's pointless. But he tried. He sat on his balcony, watched birds, didn't scroll, didn't plan, didn't measure, and by the end of that week, his mind felt different, not more full, just more free. The ideas started coming back, not forced, but flowing. Because stillness doesn't slow you down. It fuels your depth. Now ask yourself, who owns your hours? Is it your boss, your inbox, your schedule, or your soul? If every part of your day belongs to someone else, how will you ever feel whole? Recovery is not just about sleep. It's about space. Space to feel, to wander, to listen to your own thoughts. That's why a rich life protects its margins. Even 20 minutes in the middle of your day to step outside. Even one full evening, week with no screen, no plans, just you. Even 5 deep breaths before answering the next call. That's ownership. There's an old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. But here's what they don't say. You're the only one who can refill it. Nobody's going to hand you peace. Nobody's going to schedule your rest. Nobody's going to say, you've done enough, now breathe. You have to choose it, and when you do, your energy comes back. Your clarity returns. Your mood lifts. Your power renews. Because rest is not a reward. It's your right, and a rich life honors that, not by doing nothing, but by doing what restores everything. Go where? You're respected, not just tolerated. There was a young man named Amir. He worked in a fast-growing company. He followed the rules. He delivered results. But no matter how much he contributed, he always felt invisible. He noticed it in small ways. His ideas were heard, but never implemented. He wasn't invited to key meetings. When he spoke, people nodded, but never really listened. At first, he blamed himself. Maybe I need to speak louder. Maybe I'm too quiet. Maybe I'm not impressive enough. So he pushed harder, stayed later, tried to prove his worth, but the more he gave, the more drained he felt. Until one day, a colleague pulled him aside and said, "You know, if you left tomorrow, most of them wouldn't notice, but somewhere else, they'd call you a leader." That sentence stuck with him, because deep down, Amir knew it was true. He wasn't disliked. He just wasn't valued, and there's a difference. Now, meet Elisa. She was part of a friend group since college. Every birthday, every trip, every holiday, she was there. But lately, she noticed something. Her messages were left on seen. Her opinions were laughed off. Whenever she tried to talk about her growth, her healing, her new path, they'd say things like, "You've changed. You're not as fun anymore. You think you're better now?" And it hurt, because she still loved them. But the love didn't feel safe anymore. She kept shrinking herself just to be accepted, laughing at jokes that made her feel small, going to events where she didn't feel seen. Until one day, after another long dinner of pretending, she walked out into the cold night and whispered, "I don't want to keep fitting into places that shrink me." That night, she didn't just leave the restaurant. She left the version of herself that needed their permission to grow. And it was scary, but it was also freeing. Here's what we're not taught in school. Respect is emotional safety, and without it, you will always feel tense, unseen, like you're constantly proving yourself. But a rich life doesn't feel like that. Rich life feels light, where your presence isn't a burden, where your voice is invited, not just tolerated, where your boundaries are honored, where you're celebrated for who you are, not who you pretend to be. You don't need to keep showing up for people who don't ask how you're really doing. You don't need to stay in rooms where you're afraid to speak honestly. You don't need to exhaust yourself explaining your worth. You need people who already see it, friends who light up when you arrive, work that allows you to grow and breathe, spaces where your name is said with respect, not obligation. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is, "This no longer feels like love," and walk away, not out of anger, not out of arrogance, but out of love for yourself. Because love without respect is just noise. So here's the final reminder. Go where you are respected, not just liked, not just invited, not just tolerated. Go where you are honored, where your joy is protected, where your silence is understood, where your energy is matched. Because when you do, you won't have to perform. You won't have to shrink. You won't have to wonder. You'll just be home. And that's how light feels. That's how a rich life begins. Rich life living. You've made it to the end of this journey. Not a lesson, not a lecture, just a quiet walk through the parts of life we often rush past. And maybe today, something inside you felt seen. Maybe you saw yourself in the rushing mornings, in the fast meals, in the silent guilt of always saying yes, in the tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep, in the rooms where you're present, but not respected. But now, you know better, and when you know better, you can start to live better. Not by changing everything overnight, but by choosing differently, one moment at a time. Wake up a little slower. Taste your food. Say no when your heart says no. Surround yourself with quiet strength. Spend on what multiplies you. Guard your hours. And most of all, go where you are respected, not just needed. Because a rich life isn't loud. It's not about luxury. It's not always visible. It's soft, calm, rooted, and deeply free. And the best part? You don't need permission to begin living it. Your life is yours now. So breathe deep, stand tall, and begin. Thank you for listening to this episode of Daily English Podcast. If something touched your heart, if you paused and thought, if you feel just a little more connected to the life you want, then take that feeling with you. You don't have to do it all. Just begin, gently. And if you're ready to keep growing with stories, simple English and emotional lessons like this, make sure to subscribe and come back for the next episode, because the journey is long, but you never have to walk it alone. Until next time, breathe gently and live richly.